Hello and welcome to Media7. I'm Russell Brown. In this week's show, we'll look at the Official Information Act, the transparency law in which New Zealand helped lead the world, and ask how it's travelling. We'll also ask journalist Jon Stephenson to respond to a remarkable series of attacks on his credibility from senior government and military figures. But first, as ever, Sam Mulgrew is at hand with the sauce bottle.
Fairfax is axing 90 Australian sub-editors, dispensing with their delicate, experienced touch and affecting, journalists say, the quality and credibility of the Sydney Morning Herald and Melbourne's Age. Subbing will be outsourced to the infamous Page Masters. It's a sausage factory for copy. Today's centralisation of media jobs is in vogue. Cuts are nowhere more vivid than at the original broadcaster, the BBC. 465 British jobs are going, and this year BBC World Service cuts will leave 30 million international listeners out in the cold, cutting 650 jobs in numerous regions. In the United States, print's fall from supremacy cost an estimated 30,000 jobs in 3 years. In 2009, US newspaper ad revenue fell 26%. But America still has Associated Press, Australia, AAP. In a few months though, NZPA, its 42 talented staff and its claimed output of up to 1,000 pieces a day will be history. Radio New Zealand's budget has been frozen for 15 months now, and the Save RNZ Facebook community has attracted over 30,000 people. Commercial-free TVNZ7 will be canned from June next year, and yet blogs with their few financial constraints and no formal ethics seem to be popping up everywhere. All this while membership of New Zealand's PR Institute quietly grows. Might the dark arts really win after all?
It's all right, Sam, we'll keep you on. Now, Jon Stephenson appeared on this program 2 weeks ago to discuss his feature story for Metro magazine, which suggested that the public had not been told the truth about what our SAS troops do and have done in Afghanistan. The official response has been described by more than one commentator as a character assassination. The Prime Minister has not only dismissed Stephenson's credibility, but implied he is a kook. Defence Force Chief General Rhys-Jones has claimed Stephenson fabricated parts of his story. We invited Lieutenant General Jones on this program to put that claim in person, but he declined. We have decided to ask Jon Stephenson to return to the program, and he's with me now. Welcome back, Jon. Are you surprised by the nature of the official response to that story?
Well, I think it's always surprising when the head of state or the leader of a country makes such a vicious personal attack and doesn't want to discuss the facts of the story. What I would say is that in some ways I wasn't surprised, because this has been a pattern of behaviour that's been going on behind the scenes for 2 or 3 years. I've had many attacks, inverted commas, insinuations made about my motivations, whether I'm a member of the Green Party that I'm trying to bring...
You're not a member of the Green Party?
I'm not a member of any political party, never have been, and also about my motivations that I'm trying to bring down the military or undermine New Zealand's military involvement. This is pretty much the same thing that any journalist that writes about these issues experiences. I can tell you that people in Denmark, colleagues of mine who wrote stories like this, got almost the same accusations made against them by the Danish Prime Minister. He said that their credibility was well, he said that they had no credibility, essentially.
The Minister of Defence, Wayne Mapp, has pretty much dismissed what you have written about the SAS and its handling of detainees, and says it has been, quote, proven to be false. What's your response to that? Well,
I just think the Minister's delusional. On the one hand, he's standing up in Parliament admitting that the bulk of the story is correct, that troops from New Zealand, SAS troops, handed over prisoners to the Americans, and that those prisoners were mistreated, abused, and in some cases tortured. Now, the Minister's on record in Hansard as stating that that happened. That is the overwhelming bulk of the Metro story, and yet he still sees fit to say that I have no credibility. Well, I'll leave it to the public to decide who's got the credibility.
This actually is the remarkable thing, is at the same time as the Minister has been dismissing your story as pretty much a pack of lies, he stood up in Parliament and confirmed the key elements of it. The 2002 raid, as described, the fact that their SAS troops take prisoners, confirmed that the SAS were present at the Tiger International raid before the locals arrived and subsequently handed over detainees.
Correct.
Well, what do you make of that? At one hand, they're dismissing your claims, at another hand, they're admitting them in Parliament.
Well,
what's going on there?
I think it's astonishing, and I think it's a very cynical exercise in manipulation. On the one hand, they're attacking the messenger, saying he's got no credibility, and on the other hand, admitting key elements of the story. Now, I don't know what is going on, whether this is actually, by design or the fact that it's incompetence or poor media advice that the Minister and the Prime Minister and General Jones are getting. But there's an inconsistency between their statements, and there's been an inconsistency for many years between what the Prime Minister, the Defence Minister and the head of the Defence Force, the former head of the Defence Force, Lieutenant General Jerry Mataprai, said, and the evidence. And the journalists in the press gallery don't seem to be sort of bothered by this. They don't seem to be concerned by the fact that someone who's going to be our Governor General...
I would go so far as to say that on the evidence of the TV pictures, they seemeed amused by it. But more particularly when the Prime Minister implied that you were a nutcase, basically.
Yeah.
Do you feel let down by that?
I mean, I think, it's very disappointing that they don't seem to understand that there's a contradiction, as I say, between what is in the Metro article and what the Minister has admitted, and on the other hand, what he's saying about there being no credibility to the story. I mean, how can you say that you accept key elements of the story and yet the story has no credibility?
I do want to get to one issue which isn't actually part of the story and kind of came from left field. The Prime Minister said that you had called him late at night impersonating TV3's Duncan Garner.
Well, that statement is not correct, and as you can imagine, the comments by the Prime Minister and by Lieutenant General Rhys Jones are, on the face of it, clearly defamatory, particularly the claim about fabricating part of the story. What I would say is that there's a very good story here. I'm happy to tell it, but my advice at the moment, my legal advice, is that it would be wise to refrain from making any statement until this has gone through the processes that they're going through at the moment. General Jones has received a letter. The Prime Minister will be receiving a letter in due course. What I can say categorically is that there are key elements of what Mr. Key said that are either misleading or not true. I didn't call him late at night. I didn't impersonate Duncan when he rang me. The call was not, the texts and the calls were not at 11 o'clock at night, and he did not hang up on me. As for Rhys Jones, a very serious allegation that I fabricated the story, simply not true. I have lots of evidence to the contrary. I've sent that evidence to him. And the aggravating feature of this is that both the Prime Minister and the Defence Force have previously received correspondence categorically rejecting the claims that they've made. These things happened 1 year ago in the case of Rhys Jones. He questioned my visiting the base and interviewing the commander. The Prime Minister received correspondence 2 years ago, and yet suddenly this stuff gets wheeled out. It's quite cynical and quite disturbing.
Well, I feel that we have not heard the end of this one.
No, you haven't.
Jon Stephenson, thank you. Now, after the break, has the OIA gone MIA?